And with that, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Dick.
Yeah, thank you, Corey, and thank you all for being here. I was going to get up and talk up there, but I have this fear that one of these days I'm going to fall off this thing, so I'm going to just stay seated. But I do thank you all for being here. It's nice to see some excitement in this room. I'm going to pretty much let Walker and Paul do this. I will hang around for questions, but I'll let Walker introduce, and then Paul, do whatever you're going to do.
All right.
Awesome. Well, first of all, like he mentioned, thank you all for being here today. I think a few of you may actually know Paul a little bit better than we do after a couple days in Vegas and grilling him. He got a good taste of what it's going to be like here in Denver. But we do appreciate those of you that made the trip, getting out there and certainly just helping us tell the story, even just a weekend. So appreciate that. Paul, it's great to finally have you here in Denver. It's been a whirlwind since everything became public last Thursday, and we're thrilled to officially welcome you, your wife Karen, and your sons Alex, Evan, and Trevor here today in their Rockies gear over here. With their York Space Systems patch. We also look forward to meeting your daughter Talia here in short order. When this process began just over a month ago, someone asked me what we're looking for in this role. Coming off of the difficult season, my answer was simple. We needed someone who could transcend, someone who could take us beyond where we are today and help us reach new heights as an organization. We began the search by reaching out to trusted voices around the game, people who know what it takes to do the job and who understand both our market and our mission to win. Through those conversations, one name quickly rose to the top, the gentleman sitting right here next to us. Of course, it was a name we recognized, but as we learned more, we realized there's far more to his story than met the eye. Throughout our conversations, Paul impressed all of us, me, Dick, and Charlie, with his leadership style, his deep experience building not just teams on the field, but a culture within the front office, and his unique perspective on how the game should be played and led. From our very first call, his track record of success, his resilience through challenges, and his constant drive to evolve and improve stood out. It became clear that Paul isn't just a problem solver. He's a visionary leader. He's a visionary leader who inspires collaboration and conviction in everyone around him. After several more discussions, we unanimously agreed. Paul is the kind of leader that can make an immediate and lasting impact with our staff, our players, and throughout the organization. Now, we all know it's been a tough stretch here for the Rockies, to say the least. There are no excuses for that. But today marks something new. Today is the first day of our future. And from here on, we will not accept anything other than progress. To our fans, we know you're frustrated. You have every right to be. We are too. And I can't express how grateful we are for your continued passion and support. I know you're tired of hearing words. You want to see action. Bringing Paul on board to lead our baseball team is our first move, and there will be many more to come. It's the first move towards getting this team back to where we know it can be and where you, our fans, deserve it to be. We hear you, we feel your passion, and we share your belief in what Rockies baseball can be and should be. Our mission is to get there, and we couldn't be more confident that Paul is the right person to help restore pride in our brand, re-energize this organization, and build something truly special here in Denver. Most of us in this room have witnessed the electricity of the city when the Rockies are full steam, and it is our goal to get back to that as soon as possible. We have our work ahead, but we couldn't be more excited to begin that journey with Paul today. With that said, it is my pleasure to officially introduce our new President of Baseball Operations, Paul DePodesta. Take it away.
Thanks very much. It's really hard to express just how excited I am, to be here. And I can't wait to get started, especially over the course of the past week. I feel like they've been trying to start and then not actually being able to do it. So I'm glad to finally get here in Denver and get going. first of all, I want to thank the Montforts really for entrusting me with this responsibility. It's been a great process over the course of the past 4 or 5 weeks and getting to know them and getting to know this market. I also want to thank the Haslam family and the Cleveland Browns just for the trust they gave me over the course of the past 10 years. And then even, their willingness to allow me to entertain this in sort of an awkward time in the middle of our season. Not everybody would do that. And so it means a lot to me, and they've meant a lot to me over the course of, the last 10 years. And also my family, my wife Karen, my kids Trevor, Tally, Evan, and Alex. They've been unbelievably supportive, through all these years. They've been great fans. Even when they stacked their fantasy teams with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and other players in the AFC North, it's okay. Look, I've been incredibly fortunate over the course of the past 30 years. Right, I was with a CFL team, 5 different Major League Baseball teams, an NFL team. I've gotten to see a lot. I've been on both coasts. I've been in the Midwest. I've been in big market teams, small market teams, mid-market teams. I've sort of seen it all. And once you go through all that, you really start understanding what it is that's important to you in an organization. And it really, for me, begins with ownership. And, it's one of the reasons it was so hard to leave Cleveland is I thought we had terrific ownership there, with the Haslams. And the foundation of that ownership, when you're looking at it, at least from my perspective, is, is there a really high care factor, for the organization and for the city? Is there patience, because these things don't always happen overnight? And is it a partnership, or are you just an employee that if you don't get it done in year 1, then they're just going to move to the next person, where there's loyalty. There truly is a partnership. And while I had all those things in Cleveland, over the course of the past month that I got a chance to spend time with Dick and Charlie and Walker and everyone here, I absolutely felt that they checked every one of those boxes. And I felt great about the potential of moving here. The second thing, I always looked for is the challenge. 30 different Major League Baseball teams, they all have their own challenges, and they're all interesting challenges. But let's be honest, there's no challenge as compelling as this one. This is a unique environment, and there's a reason it's interesting to so many people, not just in baseball, but even in sports. So to take that on, that was really exciting for me. The other part of it, you start thinking about is the venue and the geography. And look, there's, for the last 30 years, this has consistently been one of the best venues in all of baseball. It's a great place to watch a game, probably better as a home fan than as a visitor, but it's a terrific place to be. And then again, geographically, this isn't just a city's team. This is a region's team. It's a huge part of the United States that are Rockies fans. So all of that was intriguing. And then it really comes down to the last piece, which really is the fans. Right? If you're going to pour yourself into something, ideally you do it in a place where it matters to somebody, or hopefully matters to a lot of people. And while I know it has been a difficult, few years here, the fan support has been remarkable. I mean, still lots of fans, at every one of these games the last few years. I think everybody sort of dying for this organization to get back to where it was. And I can tell you, from 2004 to 2010, I was in this division as an opposition, and in 2007, in game 163, I was here. I was in this building, right? And so I know what it's like when the Rockies are really good, and like you said, when they're rolling. I know what the electricity is like in this building, and that night, while I probably have a very different feeling and memory of that night than most of the people in this room, it made a mark. Like, it made a mark on me, and I just thought, geez, if you ever have the opportunity, I mean, this is a special place. So I'm very anxious to get started and get back to that point, where the Rockies are winning every year, and we can create that kind of electricity in this ballpark, because it's special. So thanks again for having me. Again, I can't wait to get started, and excited to be here.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Walker. Thank you, Dick. At this point, we'll go ahead and take questions from those in the room. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and Kevin or Edwin from the Rockies communications staff will pass you a mic. Just please make sure to introduce yourself and state your affiliation before your question. We'll go ahead and get started with Thomas Harding first over here.
Thomas Harding, MLB.com. Welcome to Denver. Okay, when you've talked about Dick and Charlie and Walker, but at what point in the interview process did you feel like, hey, I'm going to have that, I don't know if the word is autonomy, but I'm going to be able to put my vision in here and they're going to trust me with it and maybe, you know, just kind of defer to my thoughts and beliefs in this?
Sure. Thanks, Thomas. I think very early on, to be honest with you. Look, let's be candid. I mean, for them to connect with me, you know, this wasn't going to be the most traditional hire. I mean, it showed me right away that there was a real open-mindedness here. There was a willingness to, you know, to do things differently and to try some things. So, you know, from the beginning, I think in our very first conversations, I got that sense that, hey, we know we've done, you know, we've done things a certain way for a while. They haven't worked the way we wanted to. We're ready for a change, and we're ready to bring someone in here to effect that change. So I felt that right away and then throughout the whole process.
Hey, Paul, I guess this is for you, Pat Graham, Associated Press. You know, Coors Field is a unique venue, as you know. It's, you know, the splits there are different. How do you turn Coors Field into an advantage? I mean, what are some of the ways you can make that an actual advantage for the Rockies?
Well, you know, that's certainly the goal. I mean, I can tell you again, as an opposing team here a number of times through those years, I mean, we'd look at the schedule in March and you'd circle these dates, you know, and you dread them. You'd think, geez, we got to go in there for 3 days. No lead is safe. We don't know how we're going to get through this with our pitching. We're going to need to be thinking about how we're going to set up our pitching for the series after this. That's what I want this to be. Like, this has a chance to be, I think, the best home field advantage in all of baseball. So that's our goal, and that's what we want. I'm not going to get into the details of exactly how we plan on doing that, but that's certainly the goal here. I see it as a, you know, potentially huge advantage.
Patrick Saunders, Denver Post. Walker, I have a question for you. Can you, in a nutshell, explain to us how the hierarchy now is going to work from your dad to you to Paul to who he hires underneath, and just your hierarchy of how this is going to work?
Yeah, of course. So obviously, everyone reports upward to our chairman and CEO, my father, Dick. And basically from there, I'll still be responsible for oversight of the entire organization. So Paul will report to me. Those that he hires will report to him. And like I told Paul when we were going through this process, I mean, I'm very much behind him as it relates to his experience in the sport. I think my goal is to learn from Paul and others that he brings in on a daily basis. But you know, above and beyond that, it's partnering with him and you know, really being part of the same team. But that's how it'll be organized.
Paul, welcome to Denver. Troy Rank from the Denver Post. When the Rockies have had issues through the years, part of it has been identified as the infrastructure. It's not just at this level. Here, do you feel confident you'll be able to hire enough people to change how you do things inherently, because you were a data guy at the forefront of it 20 years ago, to where you can create a philosophy that runs through the organization with people where it's consistent? In other words, do you feel you'll be empowered to create that infrastructure? And Walker, can you speak to that? Will he have a chance to bring in X number of people to, you know, create the change you guys are looking for?
I'll let you start.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel really good about the possibilities in terms of what we can do here as we continue to sort of build out the baseball operation. You know, that being said, the first thing I want to do is really get to know everybody here that's already here and understand the capabilities that are already in place. I think it's probably beyond what maybe some people think, but I want to do that before I start thinking exactly about how we maybe want to supplement that with additional people or additional skills. But no, I've been given assurances that there's actually there's not just an appetite, there's like a thirst to build this out and you know, to make it a real strength for the organization.
How would you articulate that on Walker in regards to that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talked about through the conversations with Paul was we do have resources, right? I think we did a study where we looked at a number of other teams that are, you know, sort of our size, mid-market type teams, center of the country type teams, And what we found is, it's not necessarily that we're not spending enough money. We do have resources, we have comparable resources to those other clubs, but one of the things that I think Paul will be tasked with is figuring out how to allocate the dollars, right? Where are we missing? Where do we need to add? What can be done different with those dollars to provide, long-term a greater return on investment? So we're going to be supportive of that. We look forward to having his thoughts on what needs to be done. And again, I think there's going to be plenty of flexibility.
I want to just add one more thing to that. I think it's also not always just about the sheer volume of people or volume of information. It's how you're actually utilizing it. And is it impacting your decision-making? Is it impacting your player development, et cetera? So there is a point, we're not there, but there's a point where there's diminishing returns of just adding more and more people or more and more data. But I think we need to figure out exactly what that right line is for us so that the things that we're doing can really move the needle, for the Major League team.
Paul, congratulations and welcome to Denver. Ed Henderson with Crawford Media Group. I wanted to ask you, I'm sure right now you're drinking from the fire hose and will be for some time, but if you can identify maybe one or two of your top priorities as you move through this process.
Well, I think, the first is just to get to know everybody here, like I said before, and understand the capabilities that are already in the building. But then there's some real decisions we have to make. Certainly the manager is a first and foremost, I think, in my mind, and then from there, it's setting the entire Major League staff. We also have, some pitching jobs that we need to fill, including sort of the top pitching jobs, and that's not just hiring a person. That's actually establishing a pitching philosophy for the entire organization. So I think those are sort of front and center in my mind. Clearly, there will be probably some front office transactions, and obviously this is our offseason. We got to go sign some players, and fortunately that's already been happening. We've had some waiver claims. There's some free agents we've been out there trying to sign, so that'll be happening at the same time or concurrently. But yeah, I think the personnel here within the building, starting with the manager, is probably the first order of business.
Hey, Paul. Mark Kislett, Denver Gazette. Like you, 2 decades ago in '07, I was in the building, so I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, did Matt Holliday touch home plate? And number 2, how long does it take to go from last place to first place?
So I actually was going to purposely try to avoid this question, but I'm not sure he's ever touched home plate. But hey, just my perspective, I actually got a chance to connect with Matt late last week, so I'm sure it'll be a topic for us, at some point. But in terms of timing, I've talked about this before. As I've moved to different organizations, oftentimes when you go to an organization, there's a need for some change, right? Things haven't been going great. That's why these jobs are available. So I've been through this now a handful of times. I still don't know exactly the time frame, because I think each situation is a little different. And I don't know enough at this point to tell you exactly when that would be. But I'll tell you this, I think what we're actually trying to achieve is this fundamental change of state, right, within the organization. And that's both the talent on the field, it's also the culture in the clubhouse, the culture in the building. And even as I've gone through these different organizations and experienced that, I still have never been able to say, oh, yeah, that was perfectly predictable 3 years ago. It was, I remember even when I first got to Oakland, for instance, my first spring training there, it just felt different than when I'd come from Cleveland. Cleveland, it was a situation where they just expected to win every single day. And in Oakland, that was lacking, for sure, that first spring training. And then it sort of evolved to, hey, we think we can compete with these guys. And then it evolved to, hey, we think we can, compete with anybody, even the best teams. And then it evolved to, we know we can win. It doesn't matter who's in the other dugout. And that's a process, right? And it does take time. I'd love to speed it up, as quickly as we could. But I do think you have to sort of hit each stage in that process. And not each one is a year. Sometimes those things happen over the course of an individual season. But look, I don't want this to take a bunch of years. I'm anxious to get going and, as Walker said at the beginning, start showing some progress right away and move to where we want to be. But I think we'll start to feel it before it necessarily shows up. And we'll start feeling that progress toward that fundamental change of state.
You've worked for the evil blue empire. How are you working against it? How big a challenge is that?
Yeah, I mean, when I left the Dodgers, I went to the Padres. So it was, I've been in this boat before. I've also been in, New York when I was the Mets, and they were the Yankees, like right across the street. Even with the A's, the Giants were right across the street and had some great teams. I just don't get caught up in those things. I think we have to worry about ourselves and not worry about what anyone else in the division is doing. There are some great teams. There are some really, really competitive teams in this division. That's okay. We plan to, hopefully be one of them at some point here relatively soon. I also started back in the day where there were 8 playoff teams. Like, there are now 12. There's room for all of us. So I think for, my goal is we got to be playing in October, and I'll take my chances against anybody once you get there.
Paul, Christian
We'll go
Zayas.
Lionel first, and then we'll go to you, Christian. Go ahead.
Lionel Bienvenu, Denver 7. This question is for Dick. Dick, with Walker as Executive Vice President and now Paul as President of Baseball Operations, what specifically will your role be on the baseball side of the operation moving forward?
I think they're sort of pushing me out. Doesn't it feel that way? No, I mean, hey, much has been said about what I do and don't do. I'm here to support Walker. I'm here to support Paul. I'm here to support everybody in this building. And, we have to have the resources to make all this work, and that sort of always has been part of my responsibility too. But I'm here to support people. I'm not as bad as anyone thinks I am. I do care. I think that's where it sort of gets foggy. I care about, winning. I care about our players. I care about our, the entire staff that work here. They work extremely hard, and so, I defend them and I support them. But really, it's Paul's job, it's Walker's job, and I'm there to support them. And like I tell people, I'm the overhead around here.
Christian.
Paul, Christian Zayas, DNVR Sports. You talked about one of the biggest decisions facing you being a managerial decision. What are some of the qualities you're looking for in a manager? What are you hoping to get from a successful manager in this hiring search?
I've always believed that I think the most important job a manager has is just being a great relationship manager. Relationships with the players, relationships with the rest of their staff, relationships with the front office, et cetera. Look, it's a hard job. I mean, it's unbelievable everything that they have to deal with on a daily basis. But I think that's at the core of it. Are there other things that are important? Sure. I mean, game strategy and whatnot. But I think there are a lot of people that are capable of doing some of those types of things. But I think the people that are exceptional relationship managers, they're harder to find.
Paul, I'm Owen Perkins from the Telluride Times. There's a lot of concern about 2027 and labor. And as you're putting together, a rebuild of the organization, how much do you look to that? How much does that come into your thinking on putting things in place now with that looming in your mind, or do you have to kind of ignore that aspect?
I'd say this, at least as we sit here today, there's so much right in front of us, that we need to tackle between now and the middle of February, that's really what's on my mind, more so than anything that's, a year away or more than a season away. Obviously, at some point, from a strategic standpoint, we need to be, thinking through possibilities, but right now, it's not really part of the calculus.
John Treach, 9 News. Dick, in order to make big changes, you have to take big swings. How much do you want Paul to take those big swings and risks?
Yeah, I mean, we've taken big swings before. Paul's taken big swings before. You calculate those risks. And, if the worst possible thing could happen, are we all right? And so, you just have to weigh those risks. We all, we understand where we're at. As Walker said, we fit in a group of about 15 teams that, are not as resourceful, let's say, as, the top 5 or 8 teams. So, we know where we live, but risk, we're up for risk just like anybody else.
Paul, Scotty Gange, 9 News. Welcome to Denver. In your last position in Cleveland, you received a lot of blame for the Deshaun Watson trade that objectively was a failure with that organization. Is that fair? And if so, how can you be assured that you won't do something like that again here now in Colorado?
The previous question was about big swings, huh?
Yeah, risk.
Yeah, I was also calling plays for the Browns, and look, and I've said this before, I think whenever you have a significant player decision, whether it's trade, big free agent signing, #1 draft pick, whatever it is, like those are organizational decisions, right? Those are done collaboratively, like a lot of people on board. And if you're a senior leader of that organization at that time, then you own that decision. I mean, you do. We all do. So that's the way I feel about that. And it's the way I feel about sort of almost all the decisions we made there in Cleveland. I absolutely, own them all. And look, I've said this now for probably 25 plus years. Like, I lost my no-hitter a long time ago. Like a long, long time ago. Like I'm not perfect. I haven't been perfect. I won't be perfect going forward. Like we are definitely going to miss again. But hopefully we learn from that, and we learn from both the successes and the failures, and we get better the next time we need to make a significant decision. And I do feel like I've been able to do that through the course of my career. I feel confident that I'm a lot better today than I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I hope 5 years from now I'm a lot better than I am sitting here today.
Hey, Paul, right in front of you. Brandon Cristal, Guerrilla Sports. Now that Scotty asked a football question, I think a lot of people want to hear about Shedeur Sanders and if he's ever going to get on the field, but we can do that another time. I'm curious because Pat started to talk about the uniqueness of Coors Field. What are your thoughts on the dimensions and potentially changing them to not make it the biggest outfield so that singles become doubles and doubles become triples, and the wall that was added in right field that Jeff Bridich put up? Any thoughts to changes to the dimensions?
No, not immediately, right? I mean, I think I certainly have a sense for how the ballpark plays because I've obviously been here a bunch as a part of the visiting team. But no, I don't have sort of immediate thoughts on that. Look, I've been a part of parks that have changed. Petco changed when I was there. Citi Field changed while I was there. So I think you need to be open-minded about that as you get data and sort of understand how everything plays. And I know there have been some changes here, over the time. But my sort of more immediate concern is how we're going to play given the current situation, right? And at some point, if it makes sense to change something, I'm sure we'll look at that. But right now, I'm just focused on what it's like today.
Hi, Paul. Susie Hunter, Guerrilla Sports. You've mentioned you're excited to tackle the very unique challenges here in Colorado. Is there any one aspect of that was most exciting to you when approaching this role?
I don't know that, playing at altitude obviously is a huge deal. I'm not sure that it's like this for any other sport. Forget about baseball, like just any other sport. The impact that the environment has on the actual play of the game. Not necessarily just the condition of the players, but actually the way the game is played, the way the ball moves, et cetera. So I just think, intellectually, I think it's fascinating. It's a real challenge, for our players. But, I'm, again, sort of excited to learn even more about it. I have a lot of theories, but I'm afraid some of them are probably naive because I've been on the outside looking in, and I know there are a lot of things that have been tried here over the course of the past 30 years, and I'm anxious to learn about those too. I don't want to try something that someone already tried and it didn't work, right? So I want to learn from those things, but I do think there are probably some things that we will have to do differently than everybody else. When I left Oakland and I went to the Dodgers, look, I was really young and I was, pretty naive at the time, and we were so successful in Oakland that I thought, okay, I'll be able to forklift out what we were doing in Oakland and drop it in Los Angeles, and we'll be even more successful because we have more money and more resources, et cetera. Well, I quickly learned that that's actually not the way things work. You know, every organization is different. Every environment is different. It has its own strengths. It has its own obstacles. And again, this is unique in that sense. So I'm under no illusion that you can build a team the same way here that you would anywhere else. But again, that's part of the intrigue that I'm really looking forward to.
This is kind of a question for both Walker and Paul. There's been a lot of discussion about a possibility of there being a lockout in 2027 from both hiring a personnel perspective and also, you know, signing players. Does that change your approach to hiring people, the possibility of there being a lockout in 2027?
You know, from our standpoint, and this really comes from Dick here, but you know, we look at it as something that could potentially happen down the road. It's not something that's going to be a roadblock. It's going to be a speed bump potentially at some point. But really, I mean, we're not looking at it with the lens of holding back anything right now. We're looking at it with a lens of efficiency, right? I wouldn't say we're trying to bring on too many people, but if we can, evolve our operation in a way that provides, again, a great return in the form of wins, we're open to anything.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, it's just, like, it is what it is in terms of the time frame, but it's a bit of an artificial time frame. I think my time frame is much longer than just, 2027. I think we want to build something that's robust and lasting, and that'll certainly extend well beyond 2027, one way or the other.
Paul, Mark Knutson, Mile High Sports. So the one job that hasn't been mentioned today is general manager. Can you tell me what kind of person you're looking for? Is it somebody you've worked with previously, somebody with some new ideas, exactly when that job might get filled?
Sure. So I'm not sure exactly how it's going to evolve. And the reason I say that is because I'm a huge believer in building teams as opposed to just, picking individuals. And, I want to find someone who can help fill in some of my gaps, but also maybe help fill in some of the gaps in the rest of the organization as well. And even as we look to build out sort of the senior leadership team with people that are already here, maybe people that I bring in, it truly is a team. So if there's someone that we hire in one spot, or if there's some capabilities that are already here in the building, that may impact how I look at what we'll need out of a general manager. So I'm not dead set on anything right now in terms of the actual person or exactly what their background might be, because I think it'll really depend on how that piece fits into sort of a larger whole of our, call it senior leadership team.
Sean?
Sean Keeler, Denver Post. For Walker and Paul, Paul, you've addressed this a little in the last couple of days, but with the Chris Bryant contract, when you talk about big swings and about resources and allocation of those resources, how does that affect your ability to kind of reshuffle things, and this is for both you guys, and to get a clean slate and to build something going forward with that contract there and the financial obligations on the table?
Sure. I mean, I think it's an obligation that we have, right? But I think what we've done leading into the end of last season, whether it be at the trade deadline or since then over the past month, what we've tried to do is free up additional resources, right? And so he'll have an opportunity to allocate what we do have available, right? And I think he'll have an opportunity to convince us that there needs to be more available. So it's really about just you work within what you can, and we feel like we have opportunity to change things up and to do things a lot different in a variety of areas.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add, other than to say that there are always some guaranteed contracts on the books that again, when you take over one of these spots, that's just what it is. It's not an expansion team. You don't start from zero, right? So I think that's fine. And like I said, I think we feel like we've got plenty of room to do some things, not just this year, but over the coming years. We have a lot of flexibility.